For the agent that must be in the know, Medicare Industry Insider discusses critical insight, noteworthy trends, and upcoming issues in the Medicare market.
Deciphering and debating the legislation, regulation, and what's happening in the market. I'm Jalen Jackson.
And I'm Rachel Brameyer, and we're going to talk shop, dive deep into these complex topics, and make them understandable and actionable.
If you've ever wondered where the world of Medicare is going and how to prepare for the future, Medicare Industry Insider is the resource you've been looking for.
Welcome to another edition of Medicare Industry Insider. I'm Rachel Brameyer.
And I'm Jalen Jackson.
And today we're going to do a special edition. Today we're going to go over the 2023 client experience. So we're going to be taking a look at industry events, allocation of money, and service of your clients, and just deep dive into like the real experience the clients are having going into this AEP. And this is important as an agent just to kind of see statistically what your clients are thinking, what's getting told to them, what they're seeing, what they're viewing, and that way you can better structure your office, your business strategy to have the best AEP ever. That's the end goal.
Absolutely. We work with so many partners every year, whether it's carriers or research firms or agents and agencies, to look at what we are going to expect going into AEP. And oftentimes we talk about products and we talk about sales and we talk about things like that. But this is a really good look, I think, at focusing back to where it all starts, which is with your clients and kind of what they are going to be seeing this year, both from the plans they're already in or the plans they may be moving into, and kind of what the market's going to look like and maybe some of the concerns facing them.
For sure. So let's start off with, we've been to a lot of carrier rollouts, which is basically, it used to be where the carriers would propose or show their sneak peeks of what all the plans looked like. The future now, when you go to rollouts, is you get the really good feeling of what the carriers are thinking, where they're investing their money and their time, their effort, and what they expect the market industry to look like for that particular carrier. So we're going to do a little bit of a dive into some of the main themes that we've been seeing going to all of those. But keep in mind, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, and the final payment notice in 2024, it's actually only increasing by 3.3% for the calendar year in 2024. Versus last year was 8.5% increase. So we've gotten a little, they're still increasing, which is good. I mean, that's the end goal, is that every year CMS or the government increases the payments that they allot to Medicare Advantage carriers, but it's less than last year. So when you're looking at that, they're looking at, where are we shifting money around a little bit? So a lot of discussion this last AEP has been what benefits or things on the specific plan should we change or pull off. So that has been a big topic recently.
It really, really has. It's all about, we've got this bucket of money and we've got to figure out which glasses to pour it into. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things that I think we're seeing across all carriers, across really all segments of the industry, is this investment in technology. Mm-hmm. Huge focus on how can we leverage technology to make the client experience better, to make the claims process faster and easier, to increase access to care, whether that's digital ID cards, better live chat options through your carrier member portals, whether that's better ways to track that claims process and communicate back to physicians and providers any additional requirements, and then really leaning into some of the more value-based elements of care, investing in things like healthy living, whether that's a reward-based program or value-based insurance design elements that a lot of plans have integrated over the past few years. And then just making everything easy to use, streamlining. We're seeing so many carriers kind of work on streamlining benefits into a single card rather than having an ID card for your medical and one for your dental and one for your over-the-counter benefits and so on and so forth. You've got, United Healthcare came out with the U card last year and is expanding that again this year. Many other carriers following in those footsteps and streamlining everything into a single spot so clients can slim down their wallet.
End goal, ease.
Yep, absolutely.
You're not sitting like this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll move forward. The next big thing that we wanted to go over for the client experience is the upcoming election. So next year is going to be a huge year for elections. And just to kind of recap, throughout the rest of 2023, we have 3 governor elections: Kentucky, Louisiana, and Mississippi, which is going to kind of predict a little bit of the feelings people are going to have for 2024. But 2024 is going to be huge. We're already seeing presidential election debates. And I think it's going to just continue on where that's taking over the news, the airtime, because we have 1 president, 33 senators, 435 House reps, and 11 governors that will be elected next year. So I don't know about you, but that's one of the biggest election years I've seen in a very long time.
Well, and on top of all your school boards and hospital boards and all your local stuff that may clutter things up a little less, but the biggest thing for agents to know is it's going to be a lot harder to buy advertising space. Sure. All of this is going to impact your clients because they're going to get concerned. A lot of people are going to be throwing out a lot of ideas, good, bad, indifferent, a lot of ideas coming from all sides. And it's going to add an element of uncertainty to the market as we look to see who is elected. And, the best part about elections is, when do they happen? In the middle of AEP. So you've got folks that may say, I want to wait until the elections to see what's going to happen. Now, whether an election is actually going to affect something that drastically, that rapidly, very unlikely. But there's a lot of people who just kind of want to feel it out and see, well, depending on how the election goes, then I'll make my decision. So you may see a little bit of hesitancy in making those elections next year as we wait for those elections to play out. So kind of backloading AEP to those last 4 or 5 weeks.
And the carriers honestly are proposing their next year plans usually very early in the year, January, February, March. They're creating their plan. So like the election really won't have a huge effect on like the plans that they'll be enrolled the next year, but it is something to be aware of. And also I think in addition to that, being very in the know of what Medicare topics are coming up in the industry is going to be important, because as the year progresses, you will be getting asked a lot of questions about opinions and thoughts on some of those concerns. So we'll go through a couple of the big concerns that we'll probably see in this upcoming election. One of them we're already in the middle of. It's the Medicare redetermination. So basically because of COVID, the government said that if you enroll in Medicaid, that they will not disenroll you. And that was mainly because of COVID. They didn't want people who needed the care, they needed the money, to not have access to care and access to the funding that they needed if they were to get sick or get COVID. Well, that ended in 2023. So now Medicaid redetermination is basically looking through all of the Medicaid individuals who currently have it and disenrolling people who shouldn't have actually had it this year.
Yep, and we're seeing those disenrollment rates vary drastically across states, as high as 80% in some states, as low as 20% in others. But regardless, a lot of people that are in a major state of flux about how they're going to be receiving care in the coming year. And then with all of that on the Medicaid side, as well as everything else, comes affordability issues. People concerned about increasing premiums, increasing out-of-pockets, people looking at drug pricing. That's always been a top priority for the past several years. But 62% of adults are taking some kind of a prescription medication, and 83% say costs of those drugs are unreasonable. So when you partner a major election year with kind of some of the last major implementations of the Inflation Reduction Act, the $2,000 cap on max out-of-pockets with drug plans, the first big year of drug price negotiations under the Inflation Reduction Act, you're going to have a lot of big talking points about drug pricing.
A lot of speculation of how that's going to affect our industry and what that's going to happen, what's going to change for prices. So I think keeping your finger on the pulse with all of those top concerns is definitely very important. The final thing that we think is going to be a big topic this next year is behavioral health, specifically mental health. You've not only seen COVID happen, where a lot of people probably drank too much, were isolated, didn't have the support system that they had, that affecting a lot of individuals. And then the continuation of remote work. A lot of people after COVID continued to be isolated and still are isolated, specifically because they can now, because COVID allowed a lot of companies to create remote work. In addition to that, 63% of physicians say that they are experiencing burnout. So how are we helping the individuals who are servicing the people who need it the most, who all of your clients? How are we helping make sure that they're getting access to care that they need when the physicians that they're going to are burnt out? So
Absolutely.
a lot of good topics coming down the pike with the upcoming election, but I think two main things to think about. One is just staying on top of the main concerns and frustrations and topics that are coming up during the election because your clients will ask. And the second thing is what Shaylin mentioned, which was a really good point of any advertising you do or anything you try to get in front of your clients will probably get lost in the noise a little bit with the election. So it may be not the best year to do, advertisements on the paper or on your TV. It might be a better year to just be involved in your community and be involved in a lot of organizations on a local level opposed to like doing more mass marketing.
Yep. Another thing, last thing on elections and politics in general, big election year, whether you're seeing clients in your home, have a TV in your lobby, whatever the case may be, it's what everyone's going to want to talk about. Mm-hmm. So just, kind of prepare yourself for clients making comments, wanting to have conversations about politics. And I'm not going to tell you whether you should or should not have those conversations. That is totally up to you. But just, understand how to get yourself out of those conversations that you don't want to have and understand how to tastefully have the ones that you do.
Mm-hmm. Very good advice. The next thing that clients are experiencing is a lot of regulatory changes. So we've seen a lot of compliance changes. Mm-hmm. You are personally affected by a lot of that compliance changes, but knowing that the end goal is basically designed to crack down on rapid disenrollment and to make sure that your clients are getting the plans that they actually want to be involved in. Yep. And kind of take away from I didn't know I was getting enrolled, or I didn't know this plan was like that, yep. Or I don't know who my agent is. So several regulatory changes are to help that.
Yeah, and really the big takeaway, if you take, 48-hour scope of appointment, the pre-enrollment checklists, the disclaimers, the prohibitions on use of the Medicare card and things like that, if you look at everything kind of in concert, the big trend in compliance this year was giving beneficiaries as many opportunities to opt out of a sales conversation as they possibly can.
Right.
12 hours between educational and sales events, 12-hour time period for someone to decide they don't want to have that sales conversation, 48-hour scope of appointment, 2 days to decide they don't want to have that sales conversation. So again, the whole idea here is put the ball in the beneficiary's court, where they're the ones who have to then take action to initiate that conversation about an enrollment.
Right. I think you hit on a lot of the big ones, but I think as an agent, utilizing a lot of these final rule changes, all of the CMS compliance regulations to your benefit. Mm-hmm. Use that 48 hours to touch base with them, make sure that they're still feeling good after you did the presentation. It gives them a chance to think about it and really become a loyal customer of yours, because if you've done your job, presented options, they shouldn't come back in 48 hours and say, I don't want this plan. Yep. In addition to that, they've taken away password signatures on e-applications. So in the past, call centers could call and say, what's your mother's maiden name? And write that down and enroll them. And the client wouldn't even realize that they were enrolling sometimes because Yep. It's so easy. It was, it just made it streamlined for the agent on the phone, but also the client didn't even realize it was happening. So now they do have to have an email address or have to do a recorded voice signature where you have to read a disclaimer, or they have to actually physically sign. So there's a little bit more of an action plan that the customer has to take to actually know that they're enrolled too.
Absolutely. 100% agree that the big trend here is just putting the ball in the consumer's court, mm-hmm. making sure that clients know who they're getting involved with, know how many plans they represent, know what questions that agent or broker should be asking them to make sure that they're in a plan that fits their needs. And then, again, like Rachel mentioned earlier, going forward, hoping that sees a downtrend in rapid disenrollments, in complaints, in all of the other metrics we're concerned about.
For sure. So speaking of metrics, that's the next thing that we want to dive into. So good segue. There is a company called Deft Research, and it's essentially provides insurance carriers, agencies, and consultants and marketers with information to improve member acquisition, retention, product development, and quality ratings. This is from their website that I'm reading off of. Basically, what they do is they are the king of research in our industry. And they do a really good job of kind of breaking down in bite-sized pieces statistics that make sense and that you can then utilize. So what we're going to do next is go through their 2023 gut check study and some of the statistics that stood out to us to make sure that you as an agent are informed for this AEP on what your client experience is going to look like and how they're actually feeling.
Yep. And I think the biggest metric we can talk about, and there's a lot of this stuff that's very impressive and important and interesting to me, but I think the biggest one is the number of buyers in that buyer's remorse category. People who are very much more likely to switch plans has risen pretty drastically. The loyal and happy segment of the Medicare Advantage market has dropped from 71% to 61% between March of 22 and June of 23. That's a huge, huge drop in client satisfaction and likelihood of switching. It means 15% of Medicare Advantage clients are at risk of moving this year. Around 34 million people on Medicare Advantage currently. That is almost 5 million members that are very likely to switch plans this AEP.
Yeah, so I think, and that's actually higher than in the past that we've seen this. And one of the major reasons that DEF said was that 48% have experienced issues in utilizing their 2023 Medicare insurance. And out of that 42% experience 4 or more issues utilizing their plans. So if they're looking at that, I think it comes down to like trust and utilization. So we're seeing a lot of shifts in the market, but I think if they're getting frustrated, if they're seeing issues and things like they said 20% said that it was fewer services and flex allowances than they thought. 18% said it was smaller flex allowances than they thought. 13% said they had trouble with drug coverage. 10% had a deny and claim. 9% had trouble understanding the provider network. So a lot of different things that I think as an agent you can help them with. If they are having a issue with a claim or drug coverage, they need to know that you're available to reach out to and to help them with that. And I think the trouble with the understanding provider network, that's another opportunity for you as an agent to like step in and make sure that their providers are actually a network running their drugs, making sure that they actually understand the network in addition to that. And then they also made a side note, DEF did, that younger members tended to have more trouble understanding the insurance suggestions, insurance suggesting that younger members will need a little bit more assistance. So I think another takeaway as an agent is if you've got those 65-year-olds, maybe spend a little bit more time with them, making sure they actually understand what they're getting enrolled in.
Absolutely. And I think the big takeaway from that particular metric is some of the biggest issues we're seeing is accessing those ancillary benefits, the things that agents love to sell but hate to service. Get comfortable servicing those additional benefits, because if your client can't use them, it doesn't matter if they have them. So if you're going to sell those ancillary benefits, those extra benefits as a big plus to have a particular plan over another, make sure you are prepared to help clients access those benefits. It's going to affect star ratings. It's going to affect retention. It's going to affect the future of those benefits on that plan. People have to be able to use those benefits. Crazy it is as it sounds, there was a real brief proposal that hasn't really gone anywhere yet, but there was a proposal to force carriers to have an 85% MLR on ancillary benefits in addition to medical benefits. Again, that never really went anywhere, but as we look at what are we actually paying for in the Medicare Advantage program, one of Medicare's big call outs is, are people actually using these benefits? If they're not using it, we want it to be because they're not useful benefits, not because people don't know how to access them. And I think that's the big takeaway.
Yeah. And speaking of benefits, that was the next topic of DEF. They actually said the benefit that most members were excited about was the Part B give back. That was 18% said that was their number one selling point. And if you think about it, it's a 100% usage benefit for these plans with very little credit too, because if they are doing a Part B give back, it actually comes out of the Social Security. And so it doesn't even get connected to that carrier. So I think it does save the client money. They're actually getting more money through their Social Security. But do they actually connect that like a specific carrier was giving it to them? So I think carriers are looking at that saying, is the the benefit, the 18% that love that particular give back, worth not actually getting credit for it. So that's interesting, because I've seen some carriers specifically asking, should we even do it? Because it's hard to take away that benefit once they give it.
It really is.
But the second most excited benefit was dental and eyewear. And I think that goes back to what you just said, Shaylin, of if you're going to offer that benefit, make sure they know how to use it. So having a conversation with, let's check your network. Let's check to make sure you know where you can go to get your dental and your eyewear. Maybe even connecting and partnering with that particular dentist or a vision doctor, and having a conversation with them that this particular plan is something that is in network with them, and that you have a lot of clients on it too. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for an agent as well.
There really is. Create that synergy for your clients where you can directly refer them to the people that make the most sense, not just have them stumble around in the dark through the provider directory on their own, and maybe not know how to go through any authorizations or setting up appointments, things like that. I know we've got one agent that they are incredibly successful with referrals to the one hearing aid company in their town. That's the only one that's in network for the main, the primary plan that people have in that town. It's been an incredible referral partner for them, because people just couldn't figure out how to get the appointment set up.
Right.
So, great opportunity to connect people. And the biggest thing that agents really need to understand is present options to your clients. Agents who present fewer options to their client are more likely to have that client leave for someone else. It doesn't matter if you're presenting options that may not be what the client ends up choosing in the end. They still need to know that options are available, not just, I think this is what's going to work for you. Show those folks that there are different things. Biggest thing, over half of members that are using agents to sign up felt like they had a personal connection with their agent. Those folks are drastically less likely to switch this year. Spending time before AEP to reinforce that connection is going to really, really help your retention. And then as a strategy, realize that 42% of people felt no personal connection with their agent. Those are folks that may be looking to switch this year, if for no other reason than they don't feel taken care of, appreciated, looked out for. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Another thing that they brought up was most seniors felt that their agents discussed dental insurance, so it was 56%. And I think that goes back to the carriers, again, pushing that as an extra benefit.
Sure.
So it's top of mind, but only 1 in 8 seniors indicated that their agent talked about additional products like long-term care, cancer insurance, critical illness, final expense. And this is basically leaving them without a package of protection. I heard a quote the other day. I heard one of our agents actually say, you don't need insurance for everything, but you need a plan. And I thought that was such a good quote, because that's very true. I think having a conversation about cancer, final expense, critical illness, they may not pick up that insurance, but I think that goes back to, one, having a plan. They might have another thing taking care of it. They might have tons of money in their bank account. They might have an HSA. They might have other opportunities or ways that maybe they have cancer insurance from their group that carried over. There's a lot of different things that could be there, but as an agent, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're leaving them with a good package of protection. And I think that goes back to the feeling like that they are having a positive experience with you, which you had just mentioned, that they felt they were taken care of, and that they felt like their needs are being heard as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the biggest thing is, looking at, again, dental insurance is super popular, but don't discount those other products, those other needs and concerns. Just as big a concerns for many, many people on Medicare. And of course, follow our guidelines. Don't bring up final expense if you're presenting MA. Stick to the scope and all of that. But schedule those follow-up appointments. Have those additional opportunities to get in front of clients with these other products to round out that package of protection, and make sure that those clients are stickier because you've got more products in the house, so they're more likely to be retained. They're better protected, and they're more likely to refer you. Not only is someone who has 4 different products more likely to stay on your books, they've got 4 more reasons to refer someone to you. They may not know anyone who needs dental, vision, and hearing insurance, but maybe they know someone who could use long-term care, so on and so forth. A lot of opportunities to round out that package for your clients and expand the number of times that you come into their mind as someone that could help one of their friends, their family, someone they know.
Absolutely. So I think kind of to wrap up the gut check essentially is this year is going to be a bigger moving year than any other year.
Mm-hmm.
This year, we will see potentially 15% is what they said moving. So it's really important as an agent to meet with your clients prior to AEP so that they feel really comfortable, that they feel loyal to you. It does say, that the main reason that they're wanting to switch or that they're not feeling loyal is because they felt like their plan didn't meet what their expectations were. So having a conversation with them, making sure that they understand their benefits, where to go, that you've looked at their provider directory because 9% had trouble understanding their provider network. So I think just doing your due diligence as an agent enhances the loyalty and can kind of save you time during AEP.
Absolutely. I think that really wraps us up for this one. And again, just looking forward to a fantastic AEP. Thanks for tuning in to this special episode, and we'll see you next time on Medicare Industry Insider.